I'm in my zone.
Hey, this is Zara at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm bringing you guys the final racing title review for the racing videos that I started about 3 weeks ago. It's going to be Motorstorm Apocalypse, which released in March and May of last year, and it currently holds a Metacritic score of 77, which just so happens to be the lowest out of the 3 Motorstorm titles. I'm going to have to disagree on that Metacritic score. I actually believe this title is leaps and bounds better than the original game and slightly better than Pacific Rift. This is the first title in the series that tried to incorporate a story into the mix, and while it's a bit flimsy, they did at least give it a shot with mixing up the formula some. They also altered some core gameplay mechanics, such as the boost meter cooling down faster when you're in the air, which brings a new strategy element to the racing table. The game does several things better than the previous 2 games, but it also takes a couple steps backwards in the process. But without further delay, let's go ahead and get into the review. I absolutely love the graphics in Pacific Rift. The environment was very peaceful and soothing to race through. This game, however, is the complete opposite, as it has been cranked up to a frantic pace and focuses on racing through a city that is falling apart and in complete chaos, as you're not only avoiding other racers on the track, but you're also under attack from the city dwellers, snipers, and helicopters as well. Graphically, the game looks pretty good, but I do have one major complaint that was also found in the last title, and that is the split screen racing. Out of all the local co-op racing titles I've covered on my channel, all of them offered a nice full screen that's cut in half for 2-player action, with the exception of the budget kart racer Jimmy Johnson's Anything with an Engine. So while in this game they decided to cut this much out of the screen for its local co-op mode is mind-boggling and unacceptable in my opinion. That's just lazy visual programming and certainly shouldn't have been in either of these titles. Every Motorstorm title starts off the same. It's somewhat easy early on, and then it dials up the difficulty about halfway through. The great thing about Pacific Rift was you could jump around between the events. So if you were stuck on one, you could keep playing the game by just joining another race. That has been completely removed from this title and replaced with a linear path through the game that forces you to qualify in each race in the first few spots before you can progress to the next event. This is a bit of an odd step backwards, but I actually found this game much more forgiving in the crashing and wrecking department than Pacific Rift was. During some races I hit some objects and debris on the track at pretty high speeds that I was certain was going to cause an epic explosion, followed by watching bits and pieces of my car go in every direction, but this game actually eased up on that regard compared to the previous 2 titles. So the focus has really shifted to how you handle your boost and personal racing skill over the wreckfest that I had become used to in the last 2 titles, and this is one thing I certainly appreciated on this one. During my time actually playing online, I dealt with some internal game server issues that actually prevented me from being able to play the game online because the servers were down, along with a pretty low amount of players actually playing the game online. Maybe it was a bad week to play, or maybe this is just standard fare on here, but for the game to be just a year old, this was a bit disappointing. However, the online modes have been expanded and also include unlocking perks to help mold your playstyle, and because of the shorter single-player career mode, most of the focus for this game is on the online play. For the most part, the online matches ran pretty smooth, and I didn't notice any lag or frame rate issues, even in the rooms that were close to being full. The matches also move along pretty quickly, so it didn't feel like I was just sitting around waiting on loading screens the whole time. The reviews for this title really have been all over the place. Some reviewers hated this game and others gave it perfect scores. This is one title that's going to be hard to go off anyone's review. That includes mine or any major reviewer, as this one's really going to come down to your personal taste and what you expect out of a racing title. All of the Motorstorm games can be frustrating to play in its single player mode once you trigger the rubber banding AI to step it up halfway through the game. So to enjoy this title, you're going to need some patience along with some actual skill. As far as the game's story, racing titles generally don't mix very well with the addition of trying to add a story to it, and regardless of how good or bad the story is in this game, it could have easily been left out. I don't think anyone buys a racer for a deep story. I know I personally don't. With all that said, I did enjoy this game more than the previous two Motorstorm games, but I don't think it's one that I could recommend unless you really enjoyed Pacific Rift. Anyways, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.